I haven't even said anything yet. But hey y'all, what's up? It's Chemistry. I play video games and I do social commentary. Today we're going to be talking about Christianity and whether or not it is a white man's religion. So the reason why I thought about this for a while is because of the specific fact that honestly, growing up in the church, I didn't really I paid attention to everything that was said, but it didn't fully hit me until I got older. And I noticed that specific people were saying specific things. And then the older I got, the more I realized I feel like it's so important for you to do research and your due diligence on the things that you believe in, whether it's opinions or whatever the case may be. Because I feel like it's really weird to just blindly follow after somebody or someone else or what they say without actually knowing it for yourself. So, I really wanted to, I wanted to tackle this as accurately as possible. So yeah, aside from that, let's start all the way from the beginning. And I mean emphasis on beginning. So the foundation of Christianity. This might be a controversial one, but the foundation of Christianity didn't necessarily start from Jesus. It started from God. Like, let's just be honest. You have to go to the root in order to figure out where it came from, what happened, etc. So that's why I say let's go all the way to the beginning. So the foundation of Christianity literally is God, and it literally existed like since the creation of Adam, which is rumored to be about 14 to 60,000. It's rumored to be 14 to 60,000 plus years before the world was divided in the time of Plague, which was literally, possibly, according to carbon-14 readings, was about like 11,000 plus years ago. And then also you could find it on reasons.org, and then the scripture that pretty much like talks about the land bridges and everything separating is pretty much Genesis 10:25. So one of the first examples was Noah and the Great Flood. Everybody knows what happened. So Noah and the Great Flood, that whole thing happened approximately 1,056 years after Adam lived and died. So the flood happened 600 plus years later. So you can find that in the Bible, like if you're just curious as, you just want to read it. You could find it in Genesis chapter 5, verses 3 through 28, and then Genesis chapter 7, verse 6. So the flood happens before Noah passes 350 years later. So according to a Smithsonian Magazine article, there were some men, scientists to be exact, back in the year 2000. They were doing a whole bunch of research, and they were curious about whether or not this event happened. And they noticed that there's evidence of this event happening around 7,000 to 20,000 years, possibly. This happening around the area of the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. The article is here. So the earth also was divided around this time, as there was a really big suggestion that pretty much like there was a bunch of ice ages and land bridges separating big masses of land, like I said, Genesis 10:25. So that's like one big example of like Christianity, like being practiced before, speaking one of the origins of Christianity being practiced before Jesus was even conceived yet. So, and the crazy thing about it was that Jesus's whole birth, life, death, resurrection, everything was prophesied years before he even came into the world. So we're gonna skyrocket into that now. The basis of Christianity that we know now originated with Jesus' birth, which was around 4,000 to 6,000 AD. And this was when King Herod was king, but he passed and gave his kingdom to his sons. And it was very ironic because his son, Herod Antipas, I think that's how you say his name, he was responsible for the execution of John the Baptist and Jesus. So I just find that crazy. We're gonna skyrocket to years later when he's 30. So he's wrongfully brutalized and killed in the spring of 30 to 36 AD. And this is around the time of Passover, which is a very culturally significant holiday, not just like in Judaism, but just like Jewish culture as a whole. So something that definitely confused me for like a good minute about this was internally, I'm just like, didn't the Romans kill him? Didn't the Jews kill him? And then I had to do my own research about it. I'm like, oh, technically speaking, both people worked together to take him out. Because around the time Judea was under a client state, a client kingdom, and all that is literally you have one kingdom or one, party of people that rules over the other. They help them, but you're still under their control, long story short. So while Judea, was its own little kingdom, the Roman Empire, Judea was literally a province of the Roman Empire and eventually joined the Roman Empire around 6 AD or 6 CE, I believe. So after Christ's death, Jesus died and comes back, taught the disciples for 40 days, and pretty much ascended into heaven. He pretty much was like, all right, I did what I came to do. I'm gonna stay here for a few days, teach y'all all y'all need to know, and I'm finna dip. I'm gonna be back though. Like that, literally, that's what he said. So Christianity afterwards grew, but it grew from the area of like the Middle East in Africa, and then just spread into other areas. And it got to a point of where it obviously grew, but there was also like persecution that followed along. Like one of the deacons in the early church named Stephen, he was stoned to death. John, wild enough, was the only disciple that wasn't killed. He was exiled to the Isle of Patmos. But after that, he was just chilling and he died like when he was 80, I believe. That burp hit a little too much. Now we're gonna skyrocket to the Holy Crusades, which is literally 1,000 years later. The Holy Crusades were a series of religious wars between Christians and Muslims to secure control of holy sites considered sacred by both parties, in between 1096 to pretty much 1291 AD. So everybody wanted something out of this whole shindig. Everybody wanted something. So the person pay a little bit of attention. So the Pope was the person that really wanted the most out of this whole thing. And nobody wants to just be 100% about it, but he pretty much wanted to be the head honcho of the church. So not only did he want more power to be, executed or had in Italy, but he wanted to be the head honcho. So the merchants in this situation, they didn't really care about anybody fighting. What they wanted more than anything was to have the ability to expand their horizon when it comes to their products into the Middle East. And then the knights, not gonna lie, they were kind of guilt tripped into fighting for the church, to the point where they were just okay, if you fight for us, all your sins gonna be covered, and you're gonna get some money, some shmoney. And that is a crazy thing. That is a crazy thing to legitimately say to somebody hey, if you fight this war for us, we're gonna give you material matters, even though you might lose your life. I don't know, that's just crazy. But anyway, so in the end, the Europeans lost. The Pope ended up eventually being the head honcho of the Catholic Church, or just the church in general. It got to a really crazy point of where, even though Christianity was starting to be spread even more, it was slowly being used as a political tool in Europe. There were so many things that was happening within the Catholic Church that it got to a point where Martin Luther literally had to make the 100 Theses, and all of these denominations were given birth to as a result of all the corruption and all the stuff that was happening within the Catholic Church. All right, so now it's not too far behind. So the Europeans came over. So the Europeans were starting to like scout out with different areas to literally go and to steal people and make them into slaves. Now this might be a little controversial, but I had to literally do my due research about it, because admittedly when I think of slavery, because of everything that Black people have like went through with institutionalized slavery and so forth, that's the first thing my mind went to, until I actually like did my research and I realized, I'm like, oh, so before the whole thing of institutionalized slavery was a thing, so back in the day, let's just say it's two lands, right? Let's just say we got a land called Bebop and we got a land called, I don't know, Shu. I don't know. So Shu and Bebop are beefing, right? And Shu wins. Shu takes Bebop's land, animals, loot, and people. It can either choose to make them slaves or just let them free. So hi, this is Editing Kim here. So I'm editing, right? And I want to add this little tidbit because it might seem a little controversial, I guess. But then, so I want to add something a little bit to the slavery section. Now, the first recorded evidence of slavery actually wasn't necessarily with institutionalized slavery. It started from Mesopotamia, and there were five different codes that the people of Mesopotamia around that time pretty much abided by. So slavery was very much a thing back then, and then you had the ability to either buy them back or whatever the case may be. Either way, it was still absolutely crazy. But hey, I just wanted to add that little tidbit on there. So the more time came along, the Europeans came over and used Christianity and twisted it and contorted it to try to justify wrongfully going over to other lands and kidnapping their people and making them into slaves. Now, something I also, for the longest, I always thought, I'm like, oh, they came over and forced it on them. And I'm just like, whoa. Once I actually did, a little bit of research about it, I realized that there were already Christians over in Africa before these people even came over. And that's the crazy part, because when you really think about it and you really do, when you really read and really think about it, like the origins of Christianity, like one of the earliest places where Christianity was practiced was in Egypt, which is in Africa. Like the Bible, really, when I really thought about it and started to read it and started to pay attention to specific things culturally, I realized that it is the most culturally diverse book that I thought, that I never knew that it was culturally diverse at all. Like it's so much to say, because when you think about it, Judaism, really all the Abrahamic religions originated from Africa in the Middle East. And then these religions, specifically Christianity, it literally grew out of bounds and reached other people. Like prime example, so there was a Moroccan explorer named Ibn Battuta. I don't think I'm saying his name right, and I butchered it and I'm very upset. So this is his name. So he mentioned that there were Christians in Nubia. And at the time, Nubia was Egypt, pretty much in the area of Egypt and northern Sudan in 1325 to 1354. So basically in 14th century Africa, that there were people that was, in Africa already practicing Christianity. And then also in the Bible, one of the first churches was in Ethiopia. The first Bible came from Ethiopia. And not to mention that before the Catholic Church started to burn all the scrolls and so forth, literally what the Bible was translated from was Middle Eastern and African scrolls. Because the truth of the matter is, like, literally, like I said not too long ago, Egypt is one of the first places where Christianity, really started. There was a form of Christianity already there, and it was 1500 plus years before the transatlantic slave trade, like way before that even came, that weird stuff was even brought over to Africa to begin with. So we're gonna skyrocket into somewhat modern day Christianity. Christianity is being commercialized and treated like a business, with the rise of mega churches and people, just people consistently twisting scripture to justify doing the most heinous things that you can ever think of. And that's where it is now. That's literally the whole basis of Christianity, long story short. But I also want to debunk some myths, because I like to debunk things here and there. So is somebody, some people ask, is Christianity a Western religion? No, it's not a Western religion. Christianity's origins literally came from, like I said, the area of the Middle East and Africa. If we're being honest, like, Christianity is an Abrahamic religion. So no, it's not a Western religion. And then is Christianity a white man's religion? No, the Bible is literally seen as one of the most culturally diverse books. But, in the States or in other places, I wouldn't say it's whitewashed. It's just they changed it to be seen in a specific way. And it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy to strip the cultural significance of something so important. I just find that insane. That's a very crazy thing to do. So like, some people even ask, why the white Jesus picture? And I wondered that for years as well, because there would be moments where, like, I would open the book and it would be like a random white man that was representing Jesus, like, looking dead at me, and I was looking dead at him, and I was a little confused. So, and then I thought about it, and I was just like, I might have to do a little research on it. So I realized that when it comes to paintings like that, they're actually based on models, like actual models that pose, and the painters use that person as a reference or like a base to paint what they're actually trying to paint. And then it's crazy because Jesus is literally depicted as being the same ethnicity as other people, depending on what country you go to or depending on what place you go to. But another thing that is absolutely insane is a while back I heard about the whole Caesar Borgia thing, and I had to actually do my research on it. So no, the painting of Jesus was not based on Caesar Borgia. That was made up. It looks similar, don't get me wrong, because that's low-key what the Renaissance people used to look like back then, but no, it wasn't based on Caesar Borgia at all. And then also, something that a lot of people don't know or don't realize, which is even crazier, is back in the day, Renaissance painters blended pagan mythology with what they imagined that Jesus and other religious figures would look like. And I didn't even realize it until I saw stuff like this. Like, I saw that and I'm like, y'all are foul, dog. Y'all are foul. Another question or myth was Christianity borrowed? False. Christianity, before it had a name, originated way before, the religions that people said that Christianity borrows. With this religion, for example. So the biblical prophets, Daniel and Ezekiel, literally existed, during the time that this man was very much like alive. So, And then some instances as well is that a good portion of the other prophets existed and lived and I want to say performed miracles, but they did a lot of crazy things before before that specific religion even existed. I feel like it's kind of crazy to say, oh, you borrowed this from that when that religion never borrowed anything in the first place. So, and then last but not, well, two more things. So I read this whole thing where people were saying that, oh my gosh, like Jesus was a myth and came from Horus and ba-da-da-ba-da-boo-ba. And the crazy part about it is that's false too. That is false because Horus was not conceived by a virgin. According to the myth, Horus's parents had sex in order to have him. And not to mention that he wasn't born in a manger, he was born in a swamp, and he only had 4 followers, and he didn't perform miracles, pray, or meditate, or do any of that. So that whole thing is false. Was Jesus born during Christmas? No, he's not. If you notice, something that I really had to just think about and realize was that when you really read the scripture around the time that he was born, it's like, for example, like Luke 2 verses 8 through 9 is an example. So around the time that Jesus was born, a lot of Hebrew shepherds were tending to their flock, so they pretty much were, out and about and leading their shepherds, out making sure they're all good and stuff. Now, if it was the winter, the sheep would have been at the crib chilling, hibernating. So 9 times out of 10, the shepherds typically do this within Jewish culture, or just within that time frame, within spring to fall. So based on the weather as well, it hints around September, which is around the time of Tishri, and Tishri is a Jewish holiday. So, hey, that'll be about it. This concludes the video. But if you like this video, even if you dislike it, go down, press the like button or dislike button, or leave your thoughts down below. Comment down some topics you would like for me to cover. But aside from that, I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, bye guys.